We're back here on Michigan's Big Show through our AT&T microphones. Of course, this is the show that stars Michael Patrick Shields, except for this morning. You have me, Jeff Wiggins. And we are going to delve into, we already touched on it a little bit this morning. We had the news of the governor vetoing the several portions of the state budget that was passed by the state legislature recently, and she released her vetoes earlier this week and explained her reasoning behind several of those vetoes. I think almost 150 in total. And joining us on the other end of our lines to talk about that is Tony Daunt, Executive Director of the Michigan Freedom Fund. Mr. Daunt, thank you for joining us this morning.
Good morning, Mr. Wiggins. Boy, they must be scraping the barrel for talent like this, huh?
Well, you know, we all have our crosses to bear, and I guess MPS couldn't. Well, I noticed that they didn't reach out to you. So what does that say, Tony? So
wow, nicely done.
Well, but in all seriousness, I know I've seen a lot of the responses from the Freedom Fund and other groups around town. A lot of the business groups kind of up in arms with some of the vetoes. That's kind of to be expected, but. You're also seeing some pushback from some folks who would typically, I guess, be an ally of the governor.
Yeah, I mean, as you laid out, there were, I think it was 147, maybe 149 specific line item vetoes, and what has been shocking in both from a policy standpoint and political standpoint, foolish, were some of the targets. You know, vetoing funding for autism programs after attending one of their galas and saying she's going to be their strongest ally, using veteran services as a bargaining chip and making those who have defended our country suffer so that she can get her way. Any number of issues, and on top of some of the funding line items, we noticed that in 13 of the budgets, so all of the non-school funding budgets, she vetoed a section that protects whistleblowers and a passage that states a department or state agency shall not take disciplinary action against an employee for communicating with the legislature in the form of a legislator or their staff. And so in light of everything going on in Washington with whistleblowers and the importance of protecting them, she goes and vetoes sections in 13 budgets that wipes those protections out.
I was going to say that topic is at the tip of the tongue of everybody who's a political pundit, whether it's in Michigan or nationwide, the whistleblower issue at the national level. And I guess one question I would pose to you, Tony, is why would you think that they would strip that out? Because to be fair, at the beginning of this year, at the beginning of the governor's term, they did put in protections in place throughout the department for whistleblowers, I think particularly in response to the Flint water situation, to protect whistleblowers within the department for pointing out issues like that. I guess to emphasize their concern about making sure the truth comes out and something like Flint doesn't happen again. So why is there a difference here? Is this a change of pace, or what do you see here?
I'm baffled, quite honestly, as to why anybody, would veto that section, would make that, deem that unenforceable. It's something that, to our knowledge, has been part of these budgets language for, going back to at least 2003. And, that covers the span of both a previous Democratic governor and a Republican governor. And it really is, it's a baffling move, but again, haven't seen much in terms of well thought out strategy from this governor over the last few months here. And so, I often think maybe don't rule out incompetence in favor of conspiracy until the evidence lays out. But again, using veterans, using autistic children and their families as bargaining chips, vetoing funding for public charter schools, a class of education that's utilized by I think 53,000 students in the city of Detroit alone, because they don't follow rules from the NEA, I guess. It's really shameful. It's brazenly political, and it's reckless. And, hopefully the legislature will continue to hold strong. They did their job and provided a budget. They worked with the Democrats in both chambers to put some stuff together, and here we are. So, kudos to them for doing their job, and shame on the governor for neglecting to do hers.
Well, and I guess that brings me to my next question, Tony, because we saw the comments from Speaker Lee Chatfield, from Senate Majority Leader Shirkey, and I believe it was Senate Majority Leader Shirkey that said the budget's done. And so we're at a point now where we have almost $1 billion that has been removed from the state budget through these line item vetoes. And you have legislative leaders simply saying the job is done. Let's move on to policy issues. What's going to be the next step here? I mean, obviously the governor said she wants to revisit these issues and address these issues, and from her perspective in a more compromising fashion. But you have Mike Shirkey and Lee Chatfield saying, "What's next? Let's move on."
I applaud them for taking that stance. They worked very hard to put together a budget. They put it on her desk. She had the opportunity to participate in discussions and negotiations, and she walked away 3 weeks ago at least because they wanted to spend more money on roads. And again, none of this makes sense if you're looking at it from a rational policy standpoint or even a rational political standpoint. Her key thing for the last 2 years was fixing the damn roads, and apparently she just wanted to raise the damn taxes. And as far as next steps, I hope that the legislature continues to hold firm. Quite honestly, the governor needs to own these vetoes. She's the one who lined them out, who lined out the funding. She needs to speak to these interest groups and to these people who utilize these services and explain to them why she did that. Legislature did their part.
All right, we've got Tony all riled up here. Tony behind the glass, he's cursed a couple times already, so maybe we'll switch to another topic. Hey, Mr. Daunt, what's your take on the Michigan game this weekend? We have the Hawkeyes coming into town, and I know you're a huge Michigan fan, right?
I'm hoping for a better outcome in this game than the Wisconsin-Michigan game provided. And for those who can't pick up on what I'm saying, hope Michigan gets slaughtered.
I think you and Tony here behind the glass may disagree on that. But how about the Spartans? They're going down to Ohio State. What do you think that's gonna bring forth?
I'm hoping for similar outcome from a few years ago, where everybody thought, nobody thought Michigan State had a chance going in there to visit the Buckeyes, and we pulled one out. But it depends on what team shows up. If it's the team that showed up maybe last week and was able to grit it out, get the points when they needed, and have some good coaching, I think they got a chance. But if it's a team that showed up against Arizona State, it's going to be a short night.
All right, well, we'll find out more. We're going to be talking with Graham Crouch of the Lansing State Journal about those games a little later on. Mr. Daunt, Tony Daunt, Executive Director with the Michigan Freedom Fund, thank you for joining us this morning. Have a pleasant weekend, sir.
All right, thanks, Jeff. Take care.